Welcome to the Sens Spotlight podcast brought to you by the Sick Podcast Network. Before we get started, bet the beauties with Betway and scan the QR code on the screen or click on the link in the details section to create an account and download the app. Must be 19 plus. Please play responsibly. Betway is an official sponsor of your Ottawa Senators. We are really lucky to be joined today by the one and only Ron MacLean, host of Hockey Night in Canada. So it should be a really fun discussion from everything from the Olympics to obviously the Senators. So it should be a good one, and hit it.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. Sens Spotlight.
Here's Alfredson bursts the speed, gets a shot away, scores! Daniel Alfredson ends the game in overtime and sends the Ottawa Senators to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time in franchise history.
The sickest Ottawa Senators podcast. It's gonna be sick.
And we are joined by Ron MacLean. Just what's it been like for you? I know it's a busy time, especially this year with the Olympics and obviously the NHL's on go. Like how crazy has your start to the season been?
Well, Alex, I would say it's sort of crazy, but I live with Elliot Friedman and Kyle Bukauskas in my sphere, and so it's not been crazy at all. But like I told you before we even started prepping for the Olympics, Shirley Najak's the executive producer at CBC who invited me in to work with Perdita Felician on the morning show for CBC in Milano Cortina. We'll do it from Toronto, but in any event, I told you I haven't done a winter game since 2014, means I have to get up to speed on figure skating and alpine skiing and so forth. And just doing the prep work and the dread, the fear that you're not prepared. I've been living with that since late June.
What does your day look like when you have not just the NHL to cover, but the Olympics as well?
Well, that's actually a good question. I sit in a room adjacent to this is kind of my little office. It's a bedroom in our house and obviously filled with all the books that I really miss it's funny, you can, with Google AI and so forth, you can get anything nowadays, but I really rely on books still to this day to kind of, as an example, I was thinking about Alanis Morissette when we did the first ever Ottawa Senators game, of course, Montreal Canadiens downtown. Yeah. And Alanis sang the anthem and she was the honorary captain for the 92-93 Sens. Anyway, I just remember meeting her when she was, that dance girl, soft, sweet, and then she just came raging on with Jagged Little Pill in 95 and took over the world. But I was reading, I have a book here. I'll show you.
Show me.
Top 100 Canadian albums.
Wow.
Now that's released probably 20 years ago now. But hers is number 6, Jagged Little Pill. And it's a good story about she goes to Los Angeles and is introduced to a songwriter, producer named Glenn Ballard. And all the lyrics are Alanis's, but he really helped her, with the sound. And she released this album and just took, like I say, the world. She has one song where she's talking about, being a jilted lover again. It's kind of a recurring theme in that album. But she says, I'm going to be the thing and I'm going to be a zillionaire. And she was 100% right. But anyway, Glenn was the setup man. And I think about that goes with, we can get into this a little bit later on, but your great piece on Daniel Alfredson and Tim Stützle. And I can talk a little bit about how, you liberate Stützle with more than just a tape job, but the tape job is very important, and we can get into that.
I guess just with that, with Alfredson, what was it like being around him and those Sens teams back in the day that just would make the playoffs consistently and then lose to the Leafs outside of 2003 when obviously they were one goal away from making it to the finals, and then obviously 2007 as well in their cup round?
Well, first of all, they were a really lovable bunch. The pizza line was great. Jason Spetz is ultra detailed as well. So, Heatley was like Roy Hobbs. He was just a natural with a cannon release and, skate like the wind. He had it all and probably didn't have to think about it too much. But Jason and Daniel thought about it a ton. And they, you get to see the modern Sens work at practice. That's still the greatest kick for we as broadcasters is to watch them on off days and morning skates. And, Alfredson and Spezza used to do that game of keep away. It was spellbinding. It was, the rest of practice was going on. They were in their own orbit, doing their own little thing. It reminded me of how Mario Lemieux and Steve Yzerman settled us down at Salt Lake City in 2002. They roomed together, Lemieux and Yzerman. Yeah. They scored a give-and-go goal against the Finns. It was the winner in the quarterfinal. just a little synergy that, carried the team. And that's how it was, even though it was the pizza line. There's no question it was Alfredsson and Spezza, two righties. And so when Daniel says, I never played with a lefty, he's kidding you, because a righty to a righty is when the pass really works. The spin will be clockwise. And that means it goes with the natural alignment of Alfredsson's release. He doesn't have a puck coming in counterclockwise. It might bounce hard to get it flat to settle. So I think what Daniel was really, obviously 2 goals out of the gate, it was to kind of change his mindset perhaps a little bit, give him the grip on the puck. But I think give him the grip on the puck to try passing a push pass, because he's got 2 righties on his line most of the time, Drake Batherson and David Perron. And the Sedins were masters at it, left-hand shots who knew how to, for example, if they were passing to Kevin Bieksa, a righty, they would kind of push pass it to reverse the spin that's natural to a lefty, which is clockwise. They would make it in clockwise, and that gave Kevin a puck that would be stable, flat, moving in the direction of his swing, or in this case, shot. Very important little tidbit that only guys like Alfredsson understands. And so I think that's what he's doing with Stützle. That's a big part of it, even on the power play. They've got 2 righties with him.
It's interesting. I was at practice a couple days ago, and it was just an optional, and it's just Daniel Alfredsson out there, and he's with Nick Jensen, and they're talking about how to hold the stick, where to hold it. Sometimes you have it elongated where you're a bit more wide between your arms. Sometimes a bit closer in, and depends how you grab the puck. And I'm like, oh, I'm like in heaven. Like, this is like my hockey heaven, just like overhearing it in the stands.
The best I ever saw at that was Jyrki Lume. He definitely had his hands literally together half the time. Larry Robinson, the great Larry Robinson, was very good at choking up on the stick. You see a lot of guys slide down, so the butt end is sometimes with Claude Giroux, there's like 4 feet of stick past his glove. But to be able to work with your hands together, I don't understand it all, but I guarantee you Alfie's teaching them. It's funny, Alex, they have Steve Stais is a right-hand shot. Travis Green is a right-hand shot. Nolan Baumgartner is a right-hand shot. Alfie obviously is a right-hand shot. So they come from a world of right-hand shot thinking. And that whole left brain, right brain idea, they're definitely coming from the left side of the brain. And as a result, lots of Dave Poulin saves the day, by the way. He's there to the rescue.
Pooley. Yeah.
He's the lefty.
I remember last time we chatted on my other show, or on my old show, you talked about how you're neighbors with Steve Stais.
Yes.
Just what's that like? And maybe
I see Suzanne all the time. So they have a home about 6 blocks south of us in a far wealthier Swish part of the town. Kidding. It's just a nice old neighborhood with lots of oak trees. That's Oakville, Ontario. And I would see Steve walking Rocky, his bulldog, and I have a standard schnauzer named Jackson. And oh my God, Rocky's the funniest dog in the history of dogs. He doesn't care about anybody, but he's very friendly, and he's a big head like his dad, Steve. Anyway, I would sit and talk in Lawson Park with Steve hockey for hours on end, and I miss him in the neighborhood. But they've sold that home. They bought a little, I think it's like a townhouse downtown Oakville, so they still maintain some roots here, because Suzanne is very much a part of the tennis scene in Oakville at the Oakville Club, and she's a great athlete, really good tennis player, and works out like Steve does. So I still see Suzanne more than I see Steve, unfortunately, but that'll come during the playoffs, Steve.
What have you just thought of Steve Stais, just on the hockey part, rather than being your neighbor, just in terms of how he's kind of transformed the Senators in the last 2 years?
Well, it's impossible not to separate the neighbor part, because you cheer for a guy, like just simple things like seeing him at the My Japanese restaurant, and just the way he takes care of his family, himself, Suzanne. I would see that in the way he operates, the team with Michael Andlauer. They've got great program, and you see what Bulldogs are still doing. Zach Hyman took over, and they're just unbeaten. So he creates, like I was asking him the other day, I was speaking at University of Western Ontario, and I was asking one of his former captains with the Bulldogs, who's now a Mustang, and, he had that all buttoned down and could tell me about the player Lurk, I think was his name. Why can't I think? Anyway, just he's family first. That's important. Ultra professional, ultra competitor. You know what he was like when he played the game. So with Ottawa, he's created this young family, right? As he said, Pinto included now, he wants these guys to grow together. He knows that good teams, generally, that's how the Blue Jays, they found what might have seemed like a few misfits and created this family. And there's nothing can stop family.
How important do you think it is for, like, we talk about chemistry a lot, and in hockey and in all sports, like the Jays were the perfect example of just you could almost like see it in their eyes how close they were. But in Ottawa, like yesterday, Claude Giroux's talking to us, and Tim Stützle and Drake
That was
Batherson
so
are
funny.
dying,
Yes.
and they were just laughing because Nick Jensen fell into the boards, and Drake Batherson didn't know why, who pushed him in, and anyways, it was a hoop. But how important is it to have chemistry with this team where you can tell they're a close knit group?
Yeah, I think levity is in the history of sport probably the most under. Like Jacques Martin, when I was covering the Sens and he was coaching, he took the lesson from Scotty Bowman. When times are tight, you need a joke. You need to lighten the mood in the room. It's really important. So Simon Whitfield was a triathlete, and he was going for gold in Australia in 2000. It was the first time they ever had triathlon as part of the Olympics. So it was in Sydney in 2000. And just before the start of the race, first portion swimming, and there had been a lot of concern about sharks, believe it, in the Sydney Harbor. So they had netting all around the course, and they had guys with tranquilizer guns. They were ready in case these sharks attacked one of the triathletes. Just before the start of the race, Simon Whitfield goes over to Hamish Carter of New Zealand, who he'd been training with, and he says, "Hey, Hamish, careful, mate. There's sharks in the water here." So he's in a light, good mood, went out and won the gold medal. 4 years later, he's in Athens. He's there to defend his Olympic gold medal, and he's tight. He's been like training like a mad individual. So he's ready for the race. The gun's about to go, and Hamish Carter of New Zealand comes over and says, "Hey, careful, Simon. There's Mediterranean sea bass in the water here." Which is a hard line in and of itself. But he was light. Simon wasn't. Simon went out, finished 11th. He hadn't been out of the top 10 since Sydney. And Hamish Carter won the gold. So levity is really important. And that little moment of kibitzing, keep it down, Stützle, that's Giroux talking. It was really interesting watching the end of the game Saturday night when they needed a draw, 7 seconds to go, right? And they had all their future centers on the ice. Tim Stützle was there, and Dylan Cousins was there. Shane Pinto was there. Of course, Giroux moves off the wing to take draws because he's so good at it. But you had all these centers who are kind of the future of the team. And it was Claude who walked in. And that's a theme, Alex, in the young season that I've been blown away by the 37s, let's call them. Some of them are 38. Some of them are just about to turn 37. But a guy like Giroux, a guy like Sidney Crosby, a guy like Brad Marchand, a guy like Brent Burns, Jordan Stahl in Carolina, John Tavares in Toronto, all those guys are carrying their teams right now, which is stunning. And, you think of it as a speedy young man's game, but evidently not so fast.
What do you make of the parity too? Like just with the Senators specifically, like the Atlantic.
That's what Daniel told you, right? Alfredson. He said, in my day, we knew. And look, who could argue that it's not a good thing? Because it is a great thing that, on any given night. But the only slight problem with it that Daniel would know is that you used to have a sense that you could let your foot off the gas. I honestly feel the Oilers have run out of steam both years in the last part of the final. I attribute that to them skating too often in the final. Like they played game 3 last year in Lauderdale on a Monday night. They weren't supposed to skate on Tuesday, but sure enough, the whole team skated Tuesday. The whole team skated Wednesday. The whole team skated morning skate Thursday. And then they never looked forward again. They fell behind. They looked sort of out of gas. Florida didn't skate at all. None of their veterans, Barkov, the fourth line guys did. Noshek and Gadjevich, those guys skated, but nobody on the top 3 lines skated. And I think what Alfie got to experience was you could kind of make your way into the playoffs by February, then work on tinkering a little bit, resting here and there. I feel like teams are playing playoff games in October, and it's just it's really difficult to play 9 months at that intensity. So I kind of dislike the system for that. I mean, if I had told you that here we are in the middle of November and the Ottawa Senators in the Atlantic would be ahead of Florida, Tampa, and Toronto, and not even in the playoffs, technically, I mean, you'd have said I'm crazy, but that's the world we're in, and that's the world. It must be for Alfie and the coaching staff, for Travis, just horrible to know that You cannot relax, not one moment.
How do you think they've fared just without Kachuk, right? Like
Yeah,
obviously
fine,
they
great.
lost.
I mean, they should have been better. I agree with Steve Staios on this. They should have been better out of the gate than they were. I feel like their record. I don't know. You could probably tell me, Alex, what you
Mhm.
saw that they didn't have in the first 10 games, but there was just something a little.
Defensively, they're a bit
Yeah,
open. Yeah.
thank you. Yeah, and PK, right?
Yeah.
And Allmark on the
And
PK. You
and the goaltending, and it
right.
was kind of a perfect storm, and then they kind of
But it's
before
funny
the LA game.
all through hockey now, much like the standings, there's parity. Goaltending by and large is a 895 save percentage. There are no
Yeah.
more 835s, or sorry, 935s.
935s. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really changed. Teams are selective in their shooting, but they seem to pick the right moments. And yeah, you rush chances is the big one. If you can cut down on your rush chances, that's the sign generally of a winner. That game on Saturday night was a 1-0 game. And it was very impressive. Like, I loved how the Sens were back. They would have 5 guys in their own zone at the drop of a hat to defend. It was really a button-down, professional hockey game, and came out on the short end of the stick. But that's just, maybe Forsberg was, he
Yeah.
was owed that one.
Yeah, he was. Before preparing for this show, I was curious about your take on in Ottawa. Like, they've had Curtis McDermott in, they've had Hayden Hodgson without Kachuk, kind of two guys that can I don't know if enforcer's the right word, but definitely don't mind to square up. And I'm curious, like, where does that fit in hockey today? Like, there's less fights than ever before. How important, how much does that translate to winning in your mind to have a guy like that on
I think it's huge. Like, even Florida, before they had Sam Bennett, has done a lot of the dirty work. Matthew Tkachuk, you can always count on to do the dirty work, to have these loud shifts to let the opponent know. Radko Gudas was a big part of them coming into that sort of personality. Paul Maurice, obviously. I know Paul is a real, he can teach skills and such, but he's a big believer in that element of aggression, just to keep them honest, to keep them from taking liberties. Last night, McDavid got hit from behind again. Peyton Krebs took him into the boards a little bit awkwardly. Nick Seeler had done that at the start of the road trip for the Oilers. And nobody really responded. They've lost Corey Perry. There's another guy, older guy, that's dominating. Kane. They're just missing a little bit of that element, and I think it's a problem. I think you need to have. It's hard. Line matches, it's hard on the road to control that. It's hard in the playoffs to find a job for that guy. But I think that just that idea that they're there. The problem is, Alex, the game is now a product of the NCAA Division I. Europe, USHL is having a tough go here with this change in the way hockey works. But none of those players are playing in that kind of church where you have an enforcer, and they don't know how to do the job. Last night it was Podkolzin who stepped in and fought Peyton Krebs at the end of the second period. And he can do it. He's had a few good fights, but he's not. You don't think of him as a fighter, right? And he's certainly not trained in the role. But I for me, I don't know what they seem to think. Steve Staios and Travis Green. But I think if not the actual fighter, then the next best thing is the Tom Wilson or the Sam Bennett, or the Brady Tkachuk. So without him, you got to watch.
It was interesting. Whenever Staios had his availability kind of quarter mark, he talked about, like, ask the guys in the room how important like a Curtis McDermott is, and I was just, to me, it's weird because I watch him and he'll play 2 minutes a night. And you can see them rotating through and guys getting more tired. And I'm like, well, how does that translate to winning? At the same time, the Senators were very effective with him in the lineup. So it's this weird.
It lingers in the opponent's mind. It's like pitching changes in baseball. When you pull a pitcher, like a couple of years ago, they pulled Gausman against Seattle, and you could just see the relief in the Mariners bench. Oh God, we couldn't figure this guy out. Now we got a chance. We got a fresh slate here, and away you go. With the enforcer, in the background. Like, San Jose's picked up Ryan Reeves.
Mhm.
Haven't watched a ton of their games, but what I've seen, he's playing really well, and I think Celebrini and Smith feel safer. It's just
Mhm.
that knowledge that this guy could come over the boards and really embarrass you. And
Mhm.
nobody wants to be embarrassed. And what McDermott can do is embarrass somebody who's taken a liberty. He won't do it otherwise, but he will if you take advantage.
Is that almost in a way like what makes Brady Kachuk like the ultimate
Sure,
workhorn?
for
Just the
sure.
fact that he can go at guys and can beat you just with
The
skill and will.
like Jerome McGinley did that for Calgary. When they were at their, height in one of their top times, Jerome McGinley was that guy. The problem, of course, is you can get hurt. I
Mhm.
think Matthew came out of Four Nations banged up, and, it's just it's a concern when you have one of your most talented players risking injury. So that's a fine. But I love what it does for your bench. That's you it's like a shot block. You can see when somebody dives in front of a puck, the whole bench lifts. And
Mhm.
the other night, Leon Draisaitl was asked about Trent Frederick. He fought the next game. He fought Olivier of Columbus after
Mhm.
Sealer had taken a liberty with McDavid and nobody done anything with it. Back to back nights, they go into Columbus, Ohio, and that's when Trent Frederick, had to sleep or not sleep all night on the fact that he better do something. So they have a guy like Frederick, who's there again. I don't think really he's not trained, for the job, but somebody has to do the job.
Yeah, for sure. What I find interesting is maybe segueing a little bit to the Olympic talk is how excited are you for the Olympics and seeing Brady Kachuk, or maybe you're not excited to see Brady Kachuk on Team USA, but just for the Olympics back and the backdrop of politics, four nations last year, like how excited are you just for the Olympic hockey portion of the Olympics?
Well, there's nothing like it. I mean, in the winter games that I've not done since Sochi, so I was there for Crosby's breakaway goal, and they won 3-0 against Sweden to capture gold for the second in a row. But the American versus Canadian women's hockey rivalry, off the charts. It's always been the
Oh,
highlight of the games, right? So that I'm looking forward to as well. And then you have, for me, Alex, Tim Wormsby wrote a really good book on the 2002 Salt Lake City experience, and he begins in his introduction with the roommates, who was together with whom. That's how he knew Lemieux and Yzerman. But Paul Correa was with Curtis Joseph. And when Gretzky picked the team, one of the first guys he called was Belfour. He wanted to know that Eddie would be okay to sit and not play for 2 weeks because he wanted his energy. He wanted his competitive spit, even if guys just saw it in his eyes and never on the ice, because Brodeur and Joseph were their goalies. And then he has to room with somebody. Um, so putting the team together in that light, is part of it that's fascinating. And obviously with the kids, Celebrini, Bedard, the feeling is that Schaefer, already knows he's not likely to be on the team, but he just keeps doing
so
these.
good.
Yes, these things that again, it's Doug Armstrong this time around, but Wayne and he and Eisman, all these guys will be talking. Even the guys that are no longer part of the current management team, Peter DeBoer, they'll be talking about what can this person do? What energy do they bring? What lifeline do they provide with their talent? When Gretzky picked 2002, Belfour was an important consideration for Spark. Fleury was an important consideration. Theo had been in back from recovery from substance abuse issues. But Wayne, had played against him with the Oiler Flames rivalry, and
Mhm.
he knew how hard he was to play against. When they picked Jovanovski, how hard he was to play against, and the energy that a young Jovanovski would provide. Those were really important considerations, and that's what I'm looking forward to seeing how they decide. I said to Wayne I think when he picked Salt Lake, I said I think he got like 8 right hand shots, and he said I don't care if they shoot both ways. I don't care if they can't shoot. I care if they can play. And I think they had most of their forwards were centers as well, which is important because guys flip off, and they learned that at the '87 Canada Cup.
How important is it to have experience? Like you mentioned Celebrini, Bedard, Schaefer, like on
Hockey
merit, you could
Canada's big on it,
argue.
Alex. They think
Yeah.
that winning, a big performance means a lot. So they'll put a lot of stock in that. I think Bedard. So I heard on the TNT they were discussing the fact that Celebrini went to the Worlds last year and Bedard didn't. But Bedard wanted the time to get his act together. He'd had a tough season. The year before, Bedard was with Canada at the Worlds, and the two best forwards in the tournament were Tavares and Bedard together. They were electric together. So John Tavares, for me, kind of re-enters the equation just on that basis. He's had a good start to the season. But when they played, I think they bowed out to Slovakia. It might have been Czechia. The guys with the most ice time were Owen Power and Colton Parayko on the blue line. And at over 22 minutes in the game, Tavares and Bedard. And they were magic together. And Bedard had won the World Junior at Christmas time. And he saved their bacon a couple of times in that one, too. So he has big game experience. He's good when the pressure's on the line. And he's having a breakout year. I don't think there's any way you don't take Bedard this time.
How much of a disservice has it been just for the game of hockey not to have NHLers the last two cycles of Olympics?
Well, yes. I mean, it was almost like a afterthought. I tried to pay attention. Another neighbor here, Steve Staios, we mentioned, but Cody Goluboff. I have a really weird thing, Alex, about
former Sen.
Yeah, 4 doors down, Cody Goluboff. 3 doors from Cody is Donovan Bailey, and 3 doors from him is a guy named Larry Kane, who was an Olympic gold medalist in LA in '84 in rowing, in canoe. So you have literally 6 doors apart, 3 guys who've been on the podium at the Olympics. What was I going to say about Cody? Just he won his bronze. That's what it was, and I mean, it didn't stop the presses like it does with the NHL. But I still enjoyed it. And Marco Sturm in Germany, look what they did. So, I do, it's still great players. It's like even Spengler Cups, they're still great players. But this is back to the $150 to $200 million payrolls going head to head. That just gives you a little extra juice.
Do you feel like maybe focusing on Marco Sturm and Germany and obviously Tim Stützle, just it feels like the game's grown so much. Do you think we're at a point where maybe a Germany, a Czechia, obviously they won the Olympics in '98, but we could see more of an influx of just
definitely
crazy.
Yeah, even Switzerland back in Torino, Paul DiPietro was playing for them, and he was amazing. And there's no question that Germany with Moritz Seider, Stützle, and Draisaitl, there's a lot of fine young Germans in the game right now, and Marco knows what he's doing. So just like Ted Nolan was able to make Latvia that close to winning gold. So the parity that way is fabulous. The skill is Germany's league is just so professional, so good. A lot of really great players play there, and do it like Leon Draisaitl wears number 29 for a guy named Thompson, who played over in Germany in the Bundesliga. And he's a Canadian from southern Alberta, just outside of Medicine Hat. And Leon saw this guy playing and thought, there's my hero, imagine. So that's why he wears 29. But his dad, Peter, I was at the Olympics in '92 in Albertville when the shootout came down to Eric Lindros versus Peter Draisaitl, Leon's dad. And Leon came in on a break, and puck goes over Sean Burke, comes down and wobbles on the goal line and stops. And that's how we advanced out of the quarterfinals. It was crazy. The funny story about that night, I had been given the list of Canada's 5 shooters for the shootout. We never dreamt it would go to a shootout against Germany, but sure enough, it did. I think 3-3 tie. So we go to shootout, and I have the 5 shooters' names. Jim Poplinski was a former Calgary Flame. Yeah. He had got the names from Dave King. What happens if there's a shootout? And Dave King gave him his list. So I had the list, and I'm sitting in the Zamboni entrance at Maribel Arena in France. And to my right, about 3 seats over, is Marcel Aubout, the owner and such of the Quebec Nordiques. And next to him is Glenn Sather of the Edmonton Oilers. So I'm looking at my list, and Aubout looks over at me. He says, are those your picks, Ron? And I said, no, these are Dave King's picks. He already gave us the list. Marcel Aubout says, those are Dave King's shooters? I said, yes, he gave it to Jim Poplinski before the game. He's give it to me. And he says, shh, And then he bet Glenn Sather $500 or dinner, whatever costs more. And it was the funniest thing because all through the shootout, all I could do is look over to see, knowing that Obu was going to win this down, hands down. So the shooters were Joey Juneau, Dave Archibald, Wally Schreiber was a real, little industrious checker kind of guy. Why would he be in a shootout? But he was. Jason Woolley was a defenseman. And then finally Eric. So I had that list of 5, and Marcel Obu won $500.
I grew up playing hockey at Poplinski Arena here in Ottawa.
Oh,
no. It was one of the teams we would always play. It's one of the local rinks near kind of in.
That's neat. Yeah, what a guy. I just saw him last year at Christmas time in Calgary. And as you know, I think I've told you the story of my audition to get into the NHL. In the first place, I had to interview Jim, and he was gracious and great, as funny guy as he is. And good hockey player, great leader. Just so that's neat. Neat that you have.
I wanted to ask you about, because you're a referee, and I wanted to ask you, why is Tim Stützle so good at drawing penalties? What's up with him?
Well, there's certain guys. Elias Pettersson with Vancouver's really good at it. Famously way before your time, but Bill Barber of the Philadelphia Flyers was notorious for being good at drawing penalties. Yeah, I think it's just an art. I think McDavid can draw them, but doesn't choose to as often as he should, maybe. But the art is, like anything else, you just feel the stick and you go down. You feel that you see or you set them up for the hit from behind, because, the natural way to puck protect. It's just, I think it gets into you, like I grew up as a baseball fan with the Montreal Expos, and they had a guy played second base, Ron Hunt. He used to get hit by a pitch, 100 times a year. He was just good at it. He could, like Jimenez of Toronto was good at it. Certain guys have built that into their whatever it takes to survive in the pros. And I don't think Stützle needs that, but it buys him that power play that's ultra important in the playoffs. If you can get a good hot power play, gosh, that solves so many problems.
Speaking of the playoffs, like it feels like the Senators have maybe surpassed the Leafs now. Like they are in the standings, and it feels like, just based on vibes and how the teams are going, that the Senators might be in a different position. Like how excited are you just for the future of this team, not just this year, but moving forward?
Well, the thing for me, Alex, about Ottawa is I'm still a huge fan of Shabbat. So Jake Sanderson's the stud. When you have for me those two great defensemen, and Yakimchuk, is I think going to be a really good player for them as well. But those two, that's what Toronto doesn't seem to have. Like Tanev's out, so they miss him desperately. When he drops out of the lineup, I think Oliver Ekman-Larsson's a really great player. But after that, their D, Morgan's had a better, Riley has had a better start for the Leafs, but I still think that's there's a drop off after Tanev and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. Ottawa's defense is great, and when you watch Montreal, right, that Lane Hudson and Noah Dobson together, oh my God. So they are legit too. They've got some tough injuries up front right now, but because of their blue line, it's the same in Vancouver. Quinn Hughes is just at another level, and so you put him out there quarterbacking, and that's back to talking about lefty righty. Quinn, he was a lefty. Will pass it to as a lefty. He will pass it to Elias Pettersson versus Brock Besser on the power play. So. Those are a little, and that'll be a little part of how Canada, I think, even though Wayne shot me down on that, I think that'll be a part of how they build the team.
No, I always talk to Jake about playing for Team USA. Like he grew up, his dad obviously was Canadian, Jeff Sanderson. He grew up in parts of Calgary, and I'm like, why couldn't you have just played for Canada? Right. That would have been, but he, at like 16, had to make a decision, and he obviously plays for the States. But just with that, like with the Sens and the Habs, as you mentioned, do you feel like those are the next two kind of giants in the Atlantic?
Yeah, definitely. Florida can't go on forever. Brad Marchand is unbelievable, but at some point they'll start to age out a smidge. It took Boston a long time to age out, though. We thought that, and they took such good care of themselves with Char's leadership, and then Patrice Bergeron. So you can hold off Father Time, but that's starting to happen to both Tampa and Florida a little bit. So they'll need to rebuild. Montreal just found a great coach in Marty for a young team. The fact that they are the youngest team in the NHL, and as I said, that Lane Hudson, he's just got. They showed a shift on the end of the telecast last night on Prime at the end of the first period. You see that? It was Lane Hudson, and it was him battling offensively, defensively. He's just a special talent. But Jake doesn't. I think part of our amazement is that how can a little guy be so combative and competitive. Whereas Jake and Shabbat are more the naturals, but really good. So you've got two great anchors. I mean, Zub can play. They've got some depth back there, but I always think you just need those two guys. Niedermeyer and Pronger won Brian Burke's Stanley Cup. You got to have that.
How close do you feel like the Sens are to being a legit contender?
I think extremely close. The fact that they are set now down the middle, they're really strong. Bill Torrey used to always build from the middle, back. So if you've got a good three centers, because that third line, Florida won the cup with the Luster-Arena line. There's no doubt that was it was Lundell's line. He's the center, but that third line is vital. And now you've got a chance to have a good third line. With those kids, Pinto and Dylan Cousins. Dylan's got more, and he will continue to grow, I think, into this. And then Stützle is having a nice little breakout here. So, yeah, they're good down the middle. They've got the two studs. Now they just need Allmark to be good, if not great. Sometimes you can win with just good, really good. Darcy Kemper and Matt Murray and Antti Niemi and there's Aiden Hill, a list of goalies who you don't consider sure first ballot, Hall of Fame, but they don't cost you. And I don't think Allmark's going to cost you. It's just, that's got to be, the thing that sort of saves a young team. When this is for Edmonton, and the struggle is like Bouchard coughs up the puck, and he does that a lot because he's high risk. Grant Fuhrer could bail that Paul Coffey out, but Stuart Skinner has yet to be able to bail many of the mistakes out. He did the other night in one of their wins in was it Columbus? No, it was who did the Oilers play on Saturday night? Was that Philly? Yeah, that's great. So he can do it, but hasn't done it consistently.
Yeah, for sure. Before I let you go, I have kind of two fun questions. I feel like I have to. I'm obliged to ask you just about you and Don, just because obviously you guys worked together for so long. I saw that you visited him right before his 90th birthday last year. Just maybe talk about the two.
Well, I see him, a lot. It's honestly, Alex, the best way I can answer it is love Don. We love each other, and everything else, like, the questions, as I have found out the hard way, invariably end up in, a social media storm. It's sad, but, it's kind of where it's at. So, but I can promise you, he and I are great.
Yeah. How much do you miss just working with him? Like
I miss Bob Cole too, over my shoulder here, and Harry Neal. That was we used to have the four of us. Get in the car, and we had our sort of seating order. I was the driver, Bob was the co-pilot, and the two experts in the back seat. So but we're so lucky to have the panel we have now. And not to someday it'll be with a different host. But BX is incredible. Jennifer Botterill is incredible. Kelly's Kelly. He's incredible. We have three great. For me, they're like sports psychologists. That's the best part about the three. Is they really think, about how we have people who are loved in our care and so knowledgeable. Kevin and Jen both coach and teach, so that's amazing. And then Kelly's, in the mental health space, a leader in our country. So yeah, I miss, you always will miss folks you work with. You're a family, but I sort of assuage that, with the joy of what we have now.
How do you I'm just starting this business and obviously looked up to you like my whole childhood, but how does Ron MacLean try to get better? Like
you study, you're just constantly studying, Alex, it's all about your research. my mentor in the business, Wayne Barry, was 10 hours of prep for every hour on the radio. And it's just an endless joy of learning. Chris Hadfield, the astronaut, said success is not climbing, it's learning. And so you keep trying to, you can only be who you are ultimately. That's sort of to be authentic, but to commit to entertaining and commit to informing means you're going to have to do the prep work, and that's exciting work, right? To sit. I'm reading Rome as a book about the 1960 Olympics, considered the breakout Olympics that changed the Olympics. It was the first internationally televised games. It was set against a Cold War backdrop and lots of political intrigue. So it's like everything, timeless. They were just doing a thing for Neil Young here at Massey Hall the other night, and every song they introduced was a song perfect for its time. Oh, wait a minute, it's perfect for our time. Nothing has changed. Yeah. So that's but that requires learning. So you keep like you did. You were a curious person to get into the business. You have to maintain that curiosity.
Well, Ron, thanks so much for doing that. Is there anything, typically when I have guests on, I'm like, I need to plug them, but obviously you're on Hockey Night every night, but is there just anything that you're excited about at Sportsnet or at the Olympics that you kind of want to share?
The only thing, Alex, we didn't touch on is, by the way, Bob Cole, you see up over my shoulder there. I don't know how to point to it, but yeah, that's him fishing.
You got it.
He in Newfoundland, an Alex is an Alec. Any man with the name Alexandre is an Alec, and any female with Alex is a woman. So it's kind of a cute story. But we're going to Moncton. Why I bring that up is we're going to the capital of Acadia, Moncton, New Brunswick, for Hockey Day in Canada, January the 17th. And that's always a favorite show that we do annually. And Kevin and Elliot will do something. I don't know what they'll do to compete at maybe fish. But yeah, so that's coming up in January. It's our annual celebration. That's the only other thing that's sort of on the radar.
Cool. Awesome. Well, Ron, we always really appreciate you coming on the show. I hope for our sake that maybe you come to Ottawa sometime in the next couple of years for maybe a finals or something like that.
Me too.
But Ron, I really appreciate you taking the time and doing this, and best of luck for the Olympics and for the rest of the season.
Really appreciate it, Alex. Yeah, you too.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast Sens Spotlight on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts.